Well, thank you for being here. Marty, if you could please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Marty Ringlein, CEO and co-founder of Agree.com.
Oh, wonderful. And can you talk a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I started personally, undergrad was computer science. So I started technical coding, and this is back in, I'm old now, so it's 22 years ago, C, but then fell in love with design. And it just turned out in the early 2000s, if you could bridge the world of HTML and Photoshop, there was just the world was limitless because we didn't know what websites were yet. This is before we had content management systems, before we had cell phones. So we were all just figuring out how would you explore or identify the world on the web, and to design that interface was a really fun time for me back then.
It was a fun time, and it was like sometimes I look back on those times, and it's like shocking how much effort it took to do what now is happens so quickly.
Yeah.
And which sort of speaks a bit about like the pace of technology, and we both have a deep technology background. Like how can you talk a little bit about that and sort of how that led you into maybe what you're doing now?
Well, yeah, I think it's funny because I think for anyone listening, and this will be true for anyone listening over the next 3 years, AI. Right? Like what AI, and I feel like everyone thinks, oh, but this time is different. So no, we've always said, but this time is different. And so what I get excited about is how will the world change? How will behaviors change? And so I like designing those experiences. I think designing them from a technical perspective, designing them from like the front-facing aesthetic. What does it actually look like? How do you touch it? How will you speak to it? And what I get excited about, like, nothing's changed, right? Everything is almost at zero again, and everything will be different. And now it's our opportunity to figure out how to shape and how to form. I love convergences, right? It's never one, it's not AI. It is, and it wasn't just the web. It's a bunch of things coming together at once. Because in the early days, we had the web, but also internet speeds were getting better. Like we didn't have Wi-Fi, right? And we didn't have Bluetooth, and we had dial-up internet. So you're getting the internet, but then you're getting faster speeds, you're getting broadband. And now, when we got the first iPhone, it's like, well, we get the App Store, we get 5G connectivity, 3G connectivity even. It's like now with AI, like what will compound on top of that to unlock all these new possibilities?
You bring up a great point, and some great examples of, I think a lot of times what winds up being like the key, like the killer app in the technology is not what we think it will be. Like the internet days, app days, like we had these ideas of what's going to be a killer app that's going to like take over the world, and inevitably that it doesn't wind up being what we think it does.
Yeah.
And right now there's a lot of talk about what the killer app for AI might be. Like how do you think about usability and what might be the killer app for AI?
Yeah. I everyone's talking right now about agentic AI agents. I just look at it as workflows. So we all have a workflow, even just our normal everyday, we have a routine. And so how will those routines or workflows get automated? And I don't even think it's removing myself from the equation, or even my job being at jeopardy. It's more, what's the augmentation? How will somebody or something help me do more of the things we do? Because when I go back, again, history always repeats itself. But when we got the printing press, authors didn't print their books faster because of it. More people wrote books and more books got printed than ever imaginable. And so when I think about like the automobile, people on horses and carriages didn't get to where they were going faster because of the automobile. More people traveled more distances than ever thought possible. And then I think to your earlier point, when I think about like storage, remember the floppy 1.3 megabytes?
Yeah.
Like we now, on average, most of us just using our own Netflix individual accounts will stream terabytes of data in a given year. Like that's terabytes of data versus our entire lives lived on maybe 4 or 5, 1.3 megabytes. So things got bigger, right? The things we did with it. So the things we do with AI will get bigger. So there will be more jobs. There will be more things to do, right? We're in your office right now. There's 150 people here. There will be 350 people here, and there won't be 50 people because of AI. There will be more people because the thing you do will be 10 times bigger. And what I love is it'll be unimaginable. Right? You and I can pontificate all day long, but the reality is whatever sort of fintech meetup looks like 10 years from now, like we couldn't even guess. We will be so laughably wrong, which is the fun part.
That is the fun part. And I actually really like how you framed that as far as like empowering more people to sort of get with the program. And you talked about jobs, and your job right now is basically you started Agree.com. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so came out of our own need. We noticed that at the end of most signatures, someone has to pay someone money. Think about your lease agreement for renting an apartment, think about buying a car, almost the biggest things in life. For anyone running a business, sales contracts, right? Like someone signs and then I want them to pay. And it seemed really odd to us that that was disconnected. There's 3 to 4 different vendors to go from signing a contract, like say DocuSign, to someone creating an invoice, say QuickBooks invoice, Bill.com, and then payment processing, whether that's Stripe to do payments or Venmo or just even cash. And we just wanted to know why. Why was that? And so as we started to answer that question, we realized there's a massive opportunity here. We could bring those together for any of those big moments in business or in life where at the end of that signature, money has to move. We could start to automate it to allow us to do it faster. And so from like a B2B SaaS sales perspective, I don't want to take away the job of somebody in finance or sales. I want them closing more deals. And I want them to, and they want to do the same thing because on the finance side, they want to recognize revenue faster. On the sales side, they want the same thing. They just use a synonym for it. They want to get the commission quicker, right? And that's what the business owner wants. That's actually what the customer wants. We talk about something like FinTech Meetup. When we decide to sponsor, you could have net 45, net 60. To me, it's irrelevant. I want to give you my money as fast as possible because you know what I want? I want to select my sponsor booth really quickly. There's valuable real estate there. I want the best spot. So I'm keen to give you. And so I want to pay you fast. Obviously, from running a business, you want to collect fast, or your employees want to make sure that they get paid. So it all synergetically comes together.
So I know you talked about one of the hottest topics, AI, but another one of the hottest topics is embedded finance. Would you consider what you're doing as like an embedded finance center?
Yeah, I think embedded finance, embedded fintech, embedded banking. And I think one of these things that we've seen now with neobanks is, Roe, Brex, Mercury looks like a bank, walks like a bank, talks like can't legally use the word, right? So it's a layer on top. And Agree is so. If you have Bank of America, an actual bank, and then you have, say, the Starbucks card, which kind of acts like a bank because I give it the neobanks are kind of more right here. Right? They're further from a bank, and then we are closer, like right in the middle, because we do facilitate the movement of money. But I start looking at when we raised our rounds, we just this year we've raised $10 million. What do I do with the $10 million? I don't spend it right away. And so as I responsibly spend it over time, I put it in a treasury account. And that treasury account, creates an interest, 4% or higher. And that's in a Brex or Ramp or Mercury. And so I think, well, if I sign the investment agreements and then all the investors move the money, right? So sign, move money. When that lands in Agree, before it goes to my account, what if the Agree account was treasury? What if it created interest? I would have an incentive to not move it. And that would be interesting. And we'd start to look a little more like a bank. And then what if we did bill pay? Because we already do invoicing, and that's a big crux of like we built invoicing on top of e-signature. But what if we had some of these banking features? So we think that I know like Better Tomorrow Ventures, who led our pre-seed, invested in our seed, they say everything is fintech. And I think that's fundamentally true. I think everything today, it's so obvious everything's on the internet or everything's internet enabled. Everything is mobile first. Those are all obvious things. Everything will be powered or augmented by AI. That seems like it's getting to be more obvious. But one that a lot of people don't talk about is everything is fintech. And we got to think about like if that's embedded or not, but it is going to proliferate through everything we do.
Starting from when you first came up with the idea for Agree.com and now, like what have been some of the biggest surprises for you?
Yeah, so some really exciting ones. One, we had some things to prove. The hardest is out of the gate, we go up against DocuSign on the e-signature side. 22-year-old market leader, the incumbent, but like they created the market, right? There was no e-signature. So it is DocuSign. And when you and I do a deal, I just say, hey, send me the DocuSign. It's a verb, it's a noun. It's not necessarily going up against that, it's the trust. Will you trust? And so the brand Agree.com is very helpful in that because the .com sort of, we end up, acquiring trust through that domain name. But that ended up becoming a non-issue. People felt like, oh, it's a more modern version of DocuSign. They actually, for people that have never heard of Agree, when they receive one to sign, they think, oh, this is what the big companies use. That's why I never heard of it. Like, oh, I like that. Someone once said, oh yeah, DocuSign's for real estate. It's like, oh, I'm gonna lead into that. But the other one that shocked me was the network effects that are natural in a business like this. Every time, so if I onboard you as a customer, which I'm going to work my way to one day, but every time you send an agreement out for signature, your customers, I'm getting in front of your customer and they have to sign. And so we just in the last 9 months, we have 35,000 users on the platform, which has been wild growth, but a third of them, their origin story is that someone sent them docs to sign. They signed and then they started using the product themselves. And that was, we knew that the PLG motions existed in a product like this. I didn't know they would happen that fast. And the other thing I didn't know is that it would even help our own fundraising, where we'd go to investors and an investor would say, hey, I know about Agree because a founder sent me a safe to sign on the platform. Another investor at Norwest just last week told me that when he signed his lease for his apartment, it was on Agree. I was just like, I don't even know who that landlord is. I want to find that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and it speaks to the power of networks. And you know, I know that you attended FinTech Meetup this past
Yep.
year. Can you talk a little bit about your experience there and what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we go because, well, I'm a big proponent of meet your customer where they're at, right? And I think when we talk about networks, we're also talking about communities. And so where do all of the people who are thinking about these things in the right way at the right time, where do they congregate? You know, and it's clear there's an answer. And so if that's true, I want to be there and I want to make sure that I have a presence there. And I think we were pretty overwhelmed with just like how many people wanted to learn more about Agree. You know, I think, you know, as a business owner, I've got to put myself out there. I've got to push my own brand. But and then maybe it's the way you've also, you know, structured the conference. But just we couldn't keep up with the amount of people that wanted to engage. Because I think there's a little bit of like, hey, maybe I could use the product, but also like very interesting how you're disrupting the pricing side of DocuSign, not the technology side, and you're doing it through a fintech pathways. Like that's fascinating to them. So we had a mix of partners like JP Morgan Chase, you know, shows up and wants to talk about what we could do together. A whole bunch of VCs want to learn a bit more, and then a big cohort of our ICP come through, which I love because then I get to hear two things. One, if they are having pains with current workflows, let's switch them over, and then if they've got a workflow that I haven't yet built around, this is a learning opportunity for me. So now my product roadmap ended up getting shaped by going to FinTech Meetup.
That's powerful. And I know that you had a booth at the event.
Yeah.
Can you talk to a little bit about why you chose to have a booth and like what were the benefits of that?
Yeah. So we've only a year old. And so in the first year, we're a few months old. So we go and I go as an attendee. And I'm doing two things. One, networking, building my network, but I want to get a lay of the land. What do the booths look like? How are people doing them? As a marketer, I like to get a sense of what everyone does. And I want to try to figure out how to do something a little different. But we had a sense, hey, if we do raise money and we are capitalized enough that we can start doing some sponsorships and some booth acquisitions, we want to do it. And these are the kind of places we want to be. So when that happened, we knew that we had to go to FinTech Meetup. And it was to let everyone know that we're there. So for me, it is meeting new prospective customers, but it's building the brand.
Yeah.
Right. And I want people to know this is a fintech brand. And that's what we're building around. But I want people to, as I retarget them later, be like, oh yeah, agree.com. I remember that. And this is an amazing place to just plaster that brand in front of them and introduce it to them for the first time.
And one thing I've also seen is that like doing something like that, and you talked about it earlier, is a bit of like you there's a bit of natural trust associated with what you're doing as well. And I really like your branding too, but
well, I think a lot of people, especially when they go to expos or conferences, it's how many leads did I line up? How many demos did I get? How many customers did I convert? And they try to do some ROI math on that. And that is important. But for me, the little thing that's a little bit harder to attribute, but it is the brand building. I'd say that's probably 30% of the reason I go there is I'm building a brand, and it will be very clever because I'll try to retarget people later after the conference, people that follow FinTech Meetup, anyone that follows anything adjacent to it. And then I already know that they've been exposed to the brand. So when they see that ad in LinkedIn or Instagram, it's like, oh yeah, agree.com. But it gets ignored. It gets lost in the feed if I'm not there first. So I've got to be at FinTech Meetup. I got to put it in front of them and I got to introduce it to them. And then I can do a lot of the work after the show.
That makes a ton of sense. And you're obviously building a brand for the long haul. You know, where do you see agree.com going from here?
Yeah, so we've been fortunate. We've had a number of startups in the past. The team's been working together for almost 15 years. But sold a company to Twitter, sold a company to Eventbrite, Brex. So there's been some even M&A transactions. So people often ask, oh, we're going to sell this one too. But this is the one where, of all of them, I think every entrepreneur founder, they think about ringing the bell, throwing an IPO. And that is the mission you're supposed to head towards. This one's the one where it is the path forward is just so clear and it's so obvious. And this is classic. The only thing between us and it is just speed of execution. So, because I don't have to prove willingness to pay. Everyone in this space already pays somebody for e-signature, invoicing, and payments. I can put all together. I can build a better experience. It's just so obvious that it's going to work. The only thing that will hold us back from success is ourselves, which is scary. Because you go, oh man, it's a lot of pressure. But yeah, no, we see that path forward, and now it's just. I always like to say, go forward as though you're right, but prepare as though you're wrong. So we're going forward ready to ring that bell, but we are making sure that we're fiscally responsible, going to the right places, not sponsoring everything that we can, but making sure that we're highly targeted and we're very particular about where we go.
I'll close off with this last question about, you're a successful serial entrepreneur, obviously, and like I've done a bunch of startups, and it's hard. Like how have you kept your mental and physical health like on an even keel throughout all of these different processes?
This is one where a lot of people ask me that because it's in the 22 years in now, but a little bit of a cheat because for me, it's not work, it's a passion. So when I go to walk my dog through Prospect Park in Brooklyn, I'm solving another problem. I'm scratching an itch. Anytime I walk around here, or I walk down the street, I'm looking at billboards, I'm looking at ads, I'm thinking, oh, how could mine be more clever? How could I one up them? If I can't afford a billboard on Times Square, what would it look like? What would it say? Even if I'm years from it. But that way, when the time comes, they don't realize, like, Marty, how'd you come up with this so quick? I didn't come up with this so quickly. I've been thinking about this thing theoretically for 4 or 5 years. So I just love it. But I also think it's the team. I think there's these moments where it's like a roller coaster. You should go really fast. You should push really hard. But then you should purposely stagnate for a moment in terms of velocity. I think we often get scared as founders among ourselves talking about having an impatience. It's like it's good to have the impatience, but it's also good just to breathe for a second, set back, recalibrate. Just don't get too comfortable.
Well, thank you for letting us ride the roller coaster with you for a little bit.
Hey, thanks for having me at the conference. It was such a great time, such a big success for us.
And once again, thanks, and looking forward to continuing the.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.